Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, agents. I'm Anna Carl, and today's Let's Talk, we are going to discuss redesigning the co-op and single-player experience. And before you tell me that there is nothing wrong with the co-op experience or single-player experience in general, I want to thank each and every one of you for your emails regarding my last video of the Dark Zone. I'm going to be using those in a larger video toward the end of the week that will really go over them and cover a lot of the Dark Zone requests and stuff like that. And I will reply to most, if not all, the emails I got. I hope to be able to do that, but a lot of you say that this game is dead. But from the emails that I got, people love this game and don't want to see it fail. They want to see it succeed and go and get better. So thank you, and feel free to keep the emails coming, as I will use them for my next Dark Zone video. But also, to break that up, let's get into the co-op and single-player issues. Now, in the past, you have heard me say that this game lacks consistency across the events that make it hard or confusing to accomplish these things. Now, let's go over what some of these things mean. In the main mission area, where only you and 3 other friends can go, heroic and challenge mode mean that you are going to be expecting level 32 for challenge and level 33 for heroic. This includes the story missions like Lexington Event Center and Russian Consulate, and the gear that drops there is 240 with a very slim chance of getting something that's 268. Also, you can get a named weapon, which it doesn't really matter because named weapons are kind of garbage right now. So we want to go ahead and talk about those in a little bit. In the Underground, however, challenging heroic means something totally different. In Challenge Underground, you are going up against level 34 and heroic level 35. In the same light, you have incursions, which are similar to the Underground difficulty, but do not come in the normal flavor difficulty because these missions were made for groups of players. In this respect, I can assume that because the difficulty is the same in the Underground, that this too is made for a group of players. Sadly, the solo player is forgotten about in the Underground because the jump in difficulty between hard and challenging is just so great. Now, this is not to say without the right gear you can't do a heroic Underground, because I've seen it done. I've watched the video. Those of you who have watched it know what I'm talking about. The guy who ran through it with sentry gear and actually made it through. It is not easy, and I would say that this is only for the most seasoned veterans to take on. It is near impossible for us mere mortals to actually make it through a heroic Underground solo, or even a heroic incursion. I've seen people do heroic incursions as well. Now, quickly, I think that we need to take a look at the actual game mission for the basis of starting out and seeing how the solo player can still play the missions. They need to scale upwards. If you have ever run this game on a solo scale, you'll see that it is not the same game. The game scales to make it much more doable as a solo player. Less enemies, easier difficulty a little bit sometimes, but really it's the less enemies. And this is where things go out the window, because incursions come along and change the solo experience, basically saying that it doesn't exist anymore. Everything that has come after the incursion has been the difficulty of the incursion, and they stopped scaling the enemies to the solo experience to prevent farmers from grabbing tons of loot, and also because it wasn't Massive that was actually working on it. It was another group of developers, and while they did a good job, I do believe that somewhere along the line they got the wrong design documents for the Underground, because the Underground shouldn't be an incursion level experience. It should be a player experience, something that can be done on a solo level. However, the problem here is that while solo players can't do heroics for the most part, they should be able to. This is where we get into the design elements, so sit tight with me while I go through this. The scaling of the difficult needs to be adjusted. The game here is about time to kill and time limits. It's not about the solo versus the group play. So the single player going through this heroic Underground, they should be able to do it, but it should take them twice the amount of time to do this, because the time to gear is actually what you're playing for. If 4 people on average can clear an Underground heroic with no directives in 30 minutes, it should take a single player about an hour to complete by themselves. You shouldn't be excluded from activities because you're solo, but you should have to work extra hard at it, because solo playing is hard enough because of the stiff penalty for dying and not being revived unless you're running with your revive bag down. Now, I do think that levels in the regular game need to be adjusted to match the rest of the content. Heroic and challenge mode need to be consistent across all mission types so that if you say you are running Heroic Lexington, it is the same as running a Heroic Incursion or Heroic Underground in terms of difficulty. This will breathe new life into the game and provide a new challenge for people and groups and give people options for where they get their gear, which brings me to the next part. Gear drops need to be consistent across the game. If you run a heroic, you should expect to see a 229 or a 268 gear piece. You should not be rewarded with a 240 gear set for doing the toughest missions in the game. Bringing these missions up will not only reinvigorate the game's co-op and single player levels, but give it a much needed difficulty boost, because a lot of people are just blowing through these. They're really easy. Level 33s are nothing to somebody who's geared out in 268 stuff. Now, to make these worth doing, I do believe that they need to readjust the loot tables and to be added into a new section, and that is spread across all areas of the game. Loot needs to be spread across all areas of the game, so you can't get all of your set pieces from doing one event over and over again. While people seem to enjoy doing this, it causes burnout once you finally get that last gear set. They need to know that they can do certain events for certain gear sets. This will promote players completing various events instead of just running one event over and over again or running the event that's the most profitable. Originally, when gear sets were released, the loot tables were spread across various events. This is prior to 1.1, before incursions, or actually at 1.1, when gear sets were originally came out. So in order to get knee pads and boots, you ran Lexington. To get a chest piece, you ran the tunnel. This needs to be brought back, and the loot needs to be distributed evenly across the game world in 1.4. So you're not running across the same old things over and over again. You're looking for groups of people to run Lexington, to run Russian Consulate, to run General Assembly, things like that. You want to be able to run those to get the loot that you need, not run them because there's no purpose to run them right now except for going and getting Phoenix credits or something like that. And even then, if you're a top geared player, you don't need those Phoenix credits because there's nothing to buy with them. There's nothing to buy in this game if you're a top tier player. And so these things need to be something that needs to be done. And we could even go so far as to add in a pass that you need to buy Phoenix credits for, so that you can, the first time you run it, it will drop the loot that you need. And if it doesn't drop, the next time you run it, you won't be able to get that loot until the next gear set reset, on a timer or whatever it is. And in order to do the reset, you can do the reset earlier. You can go to the boo and get a token that will allow you to do a full reset of the mission that you want to do. So if you want to run Lexington again and get that chance to reset the loot table before the end of the week, then you can go and do that, and you can buy that, and you can go and do it, and you keep doing it over and over again until you're done. And this will actually give you something to do with the Phoenix credits. You can use them to buy it. So, and now, to make these worth doing, this is something that needs to be done. And I really want to just go ahead and just beat the examples in. So if you want a Reclaimer, Deadeye, chest, or backpack, and we'll take this to the next level. You want to run Dragon's Nest for the gloves, or you run something similar with the cleaners, you run a napalm production site. To get 268, you got to run it on heroic, but it's not guaranteed. The loot tables aren't guaranteed. There's lots of loot that can be gained, but you want to run it for that. And like I said, that's where the token system comes in. It's not for buying gear that you want. It's for buying tokens to reset the loot tables so that you don't have to wait a week. It would be a good way to see certain sets attributed to certain levels or themes in the game too. So say, let's take Firecrest for example. It seems overwhelmingly appropriate to only drop from cleaner missions. This is where we go to the Underground. The Underground has a chance to drop all of the sets still, but the sets are determined by the type of enemy you face in the Underground. And this would actually make it so you had to do Heroic Underground. Right now, all you see in Heroic Underground is basically LMB. And they need to update that, because just running against LMB for Heroic Underground isn't very fun. I'm getting kind of burned out on it. But in order to get the set piece that you want to look for a certain set of enemies. And that's the way it would be. You would go to the napalm production facility to get something that would be associated with cleaners or something like that. So, instead of dropping Firecrest or Blind all the time, it would drop something similar to the enemies you were facing, and you would kind of know when you fought those enemies what kind of loot you would expect. And there would be other things mixed in, but the main loot, the main chance for dropping it would be attributed to the gear sets that were attributed to that class of enemy. Within this, the chance for a gear set would also give you a chance for a named weapon as well, and we'll go over how to boost named weapons tomorrow, because if there is one thing in the game that is sad and broken, it's getting totally awesome weapons and having it be a terrible, experience. That's just, in Destiny, the named weapons are awesome. In Division, the named weapons are sad excuses for naming a weapon, and we need to bring those back into the limelight. So this would also work with scavenging. So let's go ahead and talk about scavenging for a minute. The higher the scavenging, the better the roll and the better the gear you got on that roll from either the boss drop or the mission reward. That would be just awesome. Let's work scavenging back in. And this is really, I didn't expect to do scavenging right now, but I want to add in scavenging because of the loot tables for where we're going. And I know that we're going to talk about gear sets tomorrow, so we can go over more scavenging stuff tomorrow as well. But let's just say 0 to 15%, which is the standard for scavenging, and that gives you a better percentage for getting a good roll on a piece of gear. So if you have 15%, you most likely would get gear that had a bonus to electronics and no armor, because that's what we see in the HVT missions so often. So if you had a 200% scavenging, you would most likely have a 200% chance at better gear. Now, the 15% chance would be a 15% chance of getting good gear. That's what it would mean. The 200% chance would basically mean that you're going to get good gear, but it's going to have additional rolls that make it really good. So you're really getting the premium stuff. So you would really get like a roll, like, a 757 on a stamina or firearms or electronics or something like that. And I know a lot of you are like, boo, electronics, but that's the way it would be. It would be like a 757, which is the max 268 gear score, or 268, whatever it is, the max category stat that you can get for those. But that is where it would be. And this would make scavenging a must-have for most players. And it would also bring back the Nomad gear set into relevancy again. People wouldn't leave home without it. People would run Nomad gear sets in almost everything just for the chance of having a better shot at scavenging. And it would also really, we could actually change this so that scavenging only worked when you were by yourself or something, because that's what the Nomad gear set is for. But that is the way to go. I think that the Nomad gear set needs to be back into relevancy, not because I have 4 268 pieces, but because I know how awesome scavenging could be and how it could really affect the rest of the game. Now, I know solo and co-op playing isn't the most pressing area of the game where the fix is needed, but I do feel that those who aren't in the dark zone really need that co-op and solo player experience, and that area is sorely missed right now. So if you have your own ideas about fixing the solo and co-op experience, drop a comment or send me an email, just like everybody that did the dark zone stuff. I'll be happy to revisit parts of the game that people want me to revisit the most in later weeks and stuff like that, because I said I'm going to be dedicated this week. No. I'm going to be dedicated to fixing this game until the game is fixed. I really enjoyed the state of the game. It really lit a fire under my ass to just go ahead and try and promote this game and promote ideas as to how we can fix it and turn it around and make it great again. That's just the way it is. I want this game to be awesome again. I want people to start coming back. I want people to just be like, this is great. So with that being said, that is my time. I will continue doing this all of this week and most of next week. I will get into gear sets and name weapons tomorrow, since I think those are the two areas that need to be covered as well. They are very pressing outside of the dark zone area. The named weapons, I think, are probably even more so the biggest thing in the game that can be fixed. It's low-hanging fruit. It's right there. So thank you once again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like on it and share it with the Division friends, and let them know that somebody in the community out there is fighting for you guys and fighting for this game and trying to come up with a lot of ideas and sharing them. At least I have a platform to share them on. If you don't feel like you have a platform, go to Reddit, go to the official forums, write down your ideas. Don't just send them to me. Send them to Ubisoft and get these ideas out there. Post them in the original forums. I dig through the forums as well, and I look at a lot of what's being posted there, and I like to go ahead and make sure that my posts, or my videos are accurately reflective of some of the stuff that the community actually wants. So thank you again, and consider subscribing for more great content like this. And I think Thursday I'm going to cover why we need to continue the story of Aaron Keener in 1.4 or 1.5, and you won't want to miss out on that. So hit that subscribe button, because you're not going to want to miss out on me describing the next story missions for Aaron Keener and kind of running with that, because I'm going to lay it out for you. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a backstory as to where I think Aaron Keener went and what he's doing these days, because I don't think that he left New York. I think he's still in New York, and I think that we have a lot of story left, and I know a lot of you really are yearning to finish this story out. Aaron Keener left the door open. He had an echo, and he wants us to know that he's still out there, and we need to chase him down and bring him to justice. So thank you again for all of us here at the Division Let's Talk. I'm Mountie Carl, and we'll see you in New York City. Agent out.